What is this?
I have a real head transplant story.
Sure you do.
So we've talked about how
feel like I
people are
don't wanna
coming out
watch
and
this.
saying that it's BS.
You realize decapitation is not a head transplant. You can't just like take a head and throw it across the room, right?
It's the first steps.
Oh, yeah, that's
so
true.
this guy, I want you to watch this story.
Spirodonov?
Yes. So
Seems
Joe
pretty
Scott has a YouTube
valid.
channel, and he was talking about this guy. It was all over the news about 6 years ago.
In 2015, Dr. Sergio Canavero, a man who in no way looks like a mad scientist who wants to attempt a human head transplant, announced that he was totally going to attempt a human head transplant. And everyone around him was like, call it. Yeah, I can see him. I told you. And believe it or not, he had a volunteer. The guy's name was Valery Spiridonov. He was a Russian programmer with muscle wasting disease called spinal muscular atrophy, which left him paralyzed and immobile. So yeah, when he heard that somebody was going to attempt a human head transplant, he was like, you know what? Pop this head on something better. Is it actually feasible? What kind of advancements would need to be made to make it happen? And maybe the biggest question, is it a head transplant or a body transplant? Canavero was born in Turin, Italy in 1964, and according to him, he had a rough upbringing and a poor family, but he worked hard, and by the age of 18, he enrolled in the medical program at the University of Turin. He graduated from there and trained in the hospital as a functional neurosurgeon beginning in the 1980s. He would then go on to work as a neurosurgeon at the hospital for nearly 22 years. And really, by all accounts, he was an accomplished neurosurgeon. He did pioneering work on central pain syndrome and Parkinson's disease. He even became the director of the Turin Advanced Neuromodulation Group. And yet, in 2015, he was unceremoniously fired from his position at the university, and they cut all ties with him. For some reason.
A head transplant.
Head transplant.
Head transplant.
Head transplant.
It is funny how the news just hops on this stuff.
Yeah, it was a severed head thing. I also feel like I should point out that his Wikipedia page describes him as having an idiosyncratic personality. Really? The head transplant guy is a little off? Who knew? I knew. Turns out he's been interested in this topic since the 80s, but he started making real plans in the 2010s. And in 2015, he published a rough description of how he'd do it. And who he'd do it to. That man was Valery Spiridonov, who I mentioned at the beginning of this video. So Valery's story seems to have played out like this. He was 33 years old when he signed up for this. That was in 2015. And his body was still deteriorating from a condition called Wernicke-Hoffman disease. He went from being a healthy, normal dude to having trouble walking, having trouble writing. Man. And he just kept getting worse and worse until he was confined to a wheelchair and had to have almost everything done for him. With his body getting progressively worse, he may have feared what was coming with his condition more than what he feared might happen in the surgery. Now, when Canavero first announced the surgery, he described it as imminent. Yeah. But, after his announcement, he lost his position at the University of Turin. He had to find a new home base to do this from, and he found one in China. Harbin University.
Of course, China's like, sure.
An orthopedic surgeon
China keeps supporting these
dude, because you know they're doing it. China is doing this stuff. They're cloning people now, probably.
A few years, and while Valery was waiting, something kind of amazing happened. First of all, his body kind of stabilized. His disease stopped progressing. Now,
that's crazy.
That might be an overly optimistic way of saying that it got as bad as it was going to get, like it couldn't possibly get any worse, but it wasn't getting any worse. And
this guy's
he kind of
kind of funny.
Second of all,
watch this.
Dude got married. Yeah, he met a woman named Anastasia Panfilova, and they fell in love and got married. This is a picture of Anastasia. She married him. Oh, and she's also got a master's in chemical engineering, so she's also super smart and accomplished. And
he decided maybe he should stick around for a while.
What's this?
Yeah, he dropped out of the surgery.
Yeah, no joke.
So my choices are I could spend the rest of my life with a hot Russian chemical engineer, or I could have my head cut off by Dr. Nosferatu over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Cake or death?
No, all kidding aside, they are happily married. They
That's
have
a cake or
together.
death.
They now live in Florida, and he runs his own software company. He is living his best life.
So good for that guy.
Yeah, in 2019, he dropped out of the surgery, though he does still support the mission. So the head transplant dream is dead, right? No. Does this look like a guy who gives up on things?
Anyways, that's it. Sorry it's so long, but it's interesting. Like, this is a topic that's happening right now. Now, it's a little bit of taboo, because people, this guy seems like
the idea of cutting off heads is crazy. Like, but China's like, yeah, no problem, buddy. We'll do it.
So, anyways, that's what I was going to show you, that like it's in the zeitgeist, as they say. I mean, people are talking about it. I mean, look at Neuralink, as you were talking about that. But anyways, that's the case where it's really actually this guy's trying to do it. He did a full TED Talk, about a 20-minute TED Talk about it. Hey, thanks for watching this clip. If you want to see the full podcast, be sure to click on the link in the description. And if you feel like it, hit subscribe.